Thank you for joining me in my studies today. 21 weeks ago, I began to externalize my studies of a book a week by sharing vocal readings of the passages that are most moving to me. This week, I'm reading from Sri Ramana Maharshi's Be As You Are.
Page 39. Equality is the true sign of jnana, knowledge. The very term equality implies the existence of differences. It is a unity that the jnani, the liberated one, perceives in all differences, which I call equality. Equality does not mean ignorance of distinctions. When you have the realization, you can see that these differences are very superficial, that they are not at all substantial or permanent. And what is essential in all these appearances is the one truth, the real, that I call unity. Page 40. Mukti, liberation, is synonymous with the self. Jivan Mukti, liberated while still in the body, and Videha Mukti, liberated at the moment of death, are all for the ignorant. The Jnani, the liberated one, is not conscious of mukti or bondage. Bondage, liberation, and orders of mukti are all said for an ajnani, one in bondage. In order that ignorance might be shaken off, there is only mukti and nothing else. Page 43. I exist is the only permanent, self-evident experience of everyone. Nothing else is so self-evident as I am. What people call self-evident, that is, the experience they get through the senses, is far from self-evident. The self alone is that. So to do self-enquiry and be that I am is the only thing to do. I am is reality. I am this or that is unreal. I am is truth, another name for self. The following is a statement by this book's editor, David Godman, who is also the librarian at the ashram of Sri Ramana Maharshi. Sri Ramana upheld the view that the notion of individuality is only the I thought manifesting itself in different ways. Instead of regarding the different activities of the mind, such as ego, intellect, and memory, as separate functions, he preferred to view them all as different forms of the I thought. Since he equated individuality with the mind and the mind with the I thought, it follows that the disappearance of the sense of individuality, i.e., self-realization, implies the disappearance of both the mind and the I thought. This is confirmed by his frequent statements to the effect that after self-realization, there is no thinker of thoughts, no performer of actions, and no awareness of individual existence. This is another statement by editor David Godman. Sri Ramana Maharshi often pointed out that traditional meditations and yoga practices necessitate the existence of a subject who meditates on an object. And he would usually add that such a relationship sustained the I thought, instead of eliminating it. In his view, such practices may effectively quieten the mind, and they may even produce blissful experiences, but they will never culminate in self-realization because the I thought is not being isolated and deprived of its identity. Here on page 47, we're moving back into the words of Sri Ramana Maharshi. From where does this I arise? Seek for it within. It then vanishes. This is the pursuit of wisdom. When the mind unceasingly investigates its own nature, it transpires that there is no such thing as mind. This is the direct path for all. The mind is merely thoughts. Of all thoughts, the thought I is the root. Therefore, the mind is only the thought I. Page 49. From the functional point of view, the ego has one and only one characteristic. The ego functions as the knot between the self, which is pure consciousness, and the physical body, which is inert and insentient. The ego is therefore called the Chit Jeta Granthi, the knot between consciousness and the inert body. In your investigation into the source of aham vritti, the I thought, you take the essential chit consciousness aspect of the ego. For this reason, the inquiry must lead to the realization of pure consciousness of the self. The essence of mind is only awareness or consciousness. When the ego, however, dominates it, it functions as the reasoning, thinking, or sensing faculty. The cosmic mind, being not limited by the ego, has nothing separate from itself, and is therefore only aware. This is what the Bible means by I am that I am. There is an absolute self from which a spark proceeds as from a fire. The spark is called the ego. In the case of an ignorant man, it identifies itself with an object simultaneously with its rise. It cannot remain independent of such association with objects. The association is ajnana, or ignorance, and its destruction is the object of our efforts. If its objectifying tendency is killed, it remains pure and also merges into the source. Page 52. The attempt to destroy the ego or the mind through sadhanas, spiritual practices, other than atma-vichara, self-inquiry, is just like the thief pretending to be a policeman to catch the thief, that is, himself. Atma-vichara alone can reveal the truth that neither the ego nor the mind really exists, and enable one to realize the pure, undifferentiated being of the self or the absolute. There's no greater mystery than this, that being the reality, we seek to gain reality. We think that there is something hiding our reality, and that it must be destroyed before the reality is gained. It is ridiculous. A day will dawn when you will yourself laugh at your past efforts. That which will be on the day you laugh is also here and now. This is a statement by David Godman, the editor of this book. Sri Ramana saw no conflict between working and self-inquiry, and he maintained that with a little practice it could be done under any circumstances. He did sometimes say that regular periods of formal practice were good for beginners, but he never advocated long periods of sitting meditation. And he always showed his disapproval when any of his devotees expressed a desire to give up their mundane activities in favor of a meditative life. Page 55. If the mind becomes introverted through inquiry into the source of ahamvriti, the I thought, the vasanas, or mind tendencies, become extinct. The light of the self falls on the vasanas and produces the phenomenon of reflection we call the mind. Thus, when the vasanas become extinct, the mind also disappears, being absorbed into the light of the one reality, the heart. Page 56. Not attending to what is other is non-attachment or desirelessness. Not leaving self is knowledge. In truth, these two are one and the same. Just as a pearl diver, tying a stone to his waist, dives into the sea and takes the pearl lying at the bottom, so everyone diving deep within himself with non-attachment can attain the pearl of self. If one resorts uninterruptedly to remembrance of one's real nature until one attains self, that alone will be sufficient. Page 57. Setting apart time for meditation is only for the merest spiritual novices. A man who is advancing will begin to enjoy the deeper beatitude whether he is at work or not. While his hands are in society, he keeps his head cool in solitude.